Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Cole. It's Sunday, August 27th, and we're now entering week 2 of Political Science 1013 on the first 8-week schedule for the fall 2023 term. Most of you should be seeing this sometime the morning of Monday the 28th. That will be the first day of our 2-day discussion, Discussion 1. We've sent a little article for you to look at about political protest, which we hope will give food for thought. We'll be discussing that for 48 hours altogether, and that discussion will close at midnight Tuesday. Please post twice. Post once initially, and then a second post in response to a classmate to get full credit for discussion 1. Okay, everybody, a week from Monday the 4th will be our Labor Day holiday, and we'll come back after that on Wednesday the 6th for our first exam. The material will be Units 1 and 2, plus some readings we've asked you to look at. We talked about Unit 1 last week. Let's very briefly run over what we have in Unit 2, which has to do with political parties and pressure groups. Now, everyone will be aware that we have two major parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, and they, of course, are organizations who try to run candidates for office, win elections, and get control of the government. So at the outset of the unit, we talk about political parties in general and what they do. One distinctive feature of the American system is that we have only two major parties, and so we raise the question as to why that is. It turns out it has to do with some very basic constitutional rules of the game, the way we do things in our country, which differs from the way things are done in many, many others. It has to do with the very basic rules of the game. However, the two major parties, the Republicans and the Democrats, have gone through any number of changes in recent times. We're going to propose that they took on their basic character that they still have today, not quite a century ago, during the presidency of Franklin D. Roosevelt, during the Great Depression, New Deal, and World War II. So, to some extent, they still resemble the parties that came about back at that time, although they're always going through changes in terms of what they stand for and the kinds of people who support them. And that's been no less true in recent years than in the distant past in early American history. So, we look at the two major parties and the way they line up in terms of the kind of people who do and do not support them. And we look at how that has changed in recent decades. So the parties now are not exactly the same as they were back in the 1930s, although there's some continuity there. Right? Then we finish that unit up by looking at pressure groups as opposed to political parties. And whereas there are only two major parties, there are many hundreds or even thousands of pressure groups, depending on who's counting and what you do and do not count as a pressure group. Okay. Unlike political parties, pressure groups do not generally run candidates for office. You might say they try to influence the political system behind the scenes on behalf of the interest of their members. And there are many ways they do that. Advertising and public relations, contributing money to political candidates, and also the activity we call lobbying, such that these organizations once were called lobbies. That refers to direct contact with a public official. In Washington, D.C., we often think of lobbyists trying to influence members of Congress, but they can also try to influence the executive branch and maybe even the judiciary, but the legislature would be primary. We have an image of lobbyists and lobbying as corrupt, but lobbyists would say that much of their work involves research and providing accurate information to legislators, as well as maintaining an ongoing relationship with legislators year after year, because it's not just a sometime thing. Organizations that speak for major corporations will want to stay in touch on a regular basis with the legislators who can affect their interests, especially on the committees and subcommittees of Congress that may entertain legislation that concerns the business of those corporations. So you'll be learning about pressure groups after you look at political parties in Unit 2. Okay? Unit 2 covers both political parties and pressure groups. Now everybody, in addition to Units 1 and 2, on the exam there are 4 readings assigned, and you would expect about 15 questions on those articles. Okay, 2 false and multiple choice. 4 things we have to ask you to look at. We have number 1, an article entitled "Americans Aren't Practicing Democracy Anymore" by Yanni Applebaum. And what he means is that Americans are not as involved as they used to be in civic organizations in which they would meet and act in concert with their neighbors or other people in their town, perhaps. Okay? And he discusses why this might be, and pay careful attention to what Applebaum says about what the schools ought to do about this. Okay? Then you have an article from the Wall Street Journal about the 2020 and 2024 elections. And the article argues that there's still a bad taste in many people's mouths from the 2020 election, and this is liable to influence the way business is conducted for the 2024 campaign. There's always a major problem in a democracy when some people do not accept the results of the election. The rules of the game are is if you lose the election, you come back and try again next time. But sometimes a point is reached that people find they cannot accept, they do not believe the election was conducted fairly. And there's still a lot of bitterness about that from the 2020 election. It is liable to influence the 2024 election. All right. Everybody, after that, we have 1 article each about the Republicans and the Democrats. The article about the Democrats argues that the party is moving left and become more progressive, while Biden has been president and even before. The final article deals with the Republicans and how they are trying to deal with the issue of abortion now that Roe versus Wade has been overturned by the Supreme Court and states are free to restrict or even prohibit abortion. So you need to look at those 4 articles for the exam in addition to the class notes from Unit 1 and 2. Unit 1 on political participation and elections. Unit 2 on political parties and pressure groups. All right, now everybody, next week, Monday the 4th is our Labor Day holiday, so we probably won't get our message out until late Monday so that you'll see it Tuesday in order to get ready for the exam on Wednesday the 6th. So please contact me with any problems, questions, or issues. I hope you will take part in the discussion tomorrow and Tuesday the 28th and 29th, and then the exam is coming up after the Labor Day holiday on Wednesday, September 6th. Take it easy, study hard, and we'll talk to you the night of the 4th going into the morning of the 5th.